Majebé here again with our weekly sharing that we've started since COVID walked into our lives. I want to thank all of you for coming, and I've got a few things to share. I'm really blessed. My good friend Lori Fendell is going to speak tonight, and Lori's been practicing 5-element acupuncture for 29 years, and she's been studying with Jeffrey Ewan, our teacher, for the last 18 years. One of the amazing things that Lori has done is she's been able to begin that process of integrating Taoist and classical medicine into the 5-element perspective. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she has to say tonight. After Lori talks, I'm going to come back and share a little bit, because we were blessed, many of us, to be on a class today with our teacher. We were all supposed to be in New York City, but we're all in our homes sitting on internets with live streaming of his classes. And Jeffrey Ewan's actually going to be live streaming a class for any acupuncturists who are listening at the end of June on the 9 palaces. But in the meantime, what I wanted to share is that after Lori talks, we got to listen to Jeffrey today talk a little bit about dreams and sleep, because one of the things that we've noticed is with COVID-19, it's really brought up a lot of fear for people, and in bringing up fear, it's really impacted our sleep and our dreaming particularly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what he shared with us in class today, and I'll be doing that after Lori talks. Before that, I want to share a little bit about hamsters. In Hong Kong, they've been doing some research with hamsters, and what they wanted to do was check and see how masks could be impacting Corona-19. And I know you're all imagining these little bitty mice with masks on their face, but no, that's not what they did. What they did is they infected some of these mice with the coronavirus, and then they housed them near others. And in addition to this, what they did is they made the airflow from the sick creatures that it went into the place where the other mice were being housed. And having that flow of air going over the other mice, we know that the virus is circulating and traveling through the air. What they found out is that when the scientists covered it wasn't mice, it was hamsters. When scientists covered the hamsters' cages with surgical masks, okay, there were 3 things that without the barriers, without the surgical mask, 67% of the other hamsters contracted the infection. So without the mask, 67%. The rate dropped to 33% if they covered the healthy hamster's cage with surgical mask. And here's the big thing: if both of the cages were covered with surgical mask, the sick hamster's cage and the healthy hamster's cage, it lowered it to 17%. And even the animals who did become infected, what they found out is that they had lower viral loads. So this research showed clearly that whether it's hamsters or humans, asymptomatic or symptomatic, we need to put on masks, because they actually protect other people, but they're also protecting ourselves. And we're hearing a lot that it really has to just do with other people, but it really is protecting us also. There had been research before this that showed that people who are asymptomatic could be infected and could spread it. So even if you're not sick, if you've been basically exposed and you could be infected, you could be spreading it. So even if we feel healthy, we should all be doing this to take care of others. They expect this to be published in the Journal of Clinical Infectious Disease And Dr. Kwok Yong has published previous research there. And again, he's a researcher out of Hong Kong. So that's the one thing that I want to share, is that it's not just about, sick people wearing the mask, but if all of us are wearing the mask, the infection rates will go down dramatically. The other thing I wanted to share with you is, unfortunately, North Carolina, our numbers continue to climb. We had about a 15% increase this last week and about a 10% increase in deaths. So, here in North Carolina, particularly as it opens up, I know in Buncombe County, they've said that, everyone has to wear a mask if you're going into any type of public retail store or things like that. But I just really want to encourage everybody to make sure you are all wearing masks at this point. So we're going to have Lori speaking about 5 elements and how that could be impacting us and our health at this point in time. Then I'm going to come back on and talk about dreams and the 5 elements and what Jeffrey shared with us today. And then we have questions at the end now. So again, Lori has been on the faculty of Dallas Traditions Acupuncture College since it began, and she's been an amazing teacher for our students. And Lori, thank you for joining us today. I see you stepping in now. Okay. Hi.
Hello. Hi, everybody. As you know, this is such a new medium, one that I'm certainly not used to. I'm used to talking to people directly. So I have just prepared some thoughts ahead of time to be able to share with you. So I have loved the 5 elements since I started studying that so many years ago. The tradition I studied with was Dr. J.R.Worsley, and he was in England and brought many of the riches of Chinese medicine back from there. And the focus on that teaching has been very much a spiritual and an emotional intelligence and healing. So that's where our orientation is. And then when I started studying with Jeffrey about 18 years ago, that was able to bring much more depth and breadth to the emotions and the spiritual level of practicing Chinese medicine also. So I wanted to share some things with you today about some of the gifts that I've learned about practices with working in the spiritual and the emotional level with myself and with my patients. And so something my grandmother talked about when I was very young, she talked about that still small voice of our deep inner self, that we can call it our spiritual influences, our inner truth, our destiny knocking, but it's trying to get our attention that has been so busy and distracted attending to the demands of our daily life. So then if we're not listening, the body starts speaking and tries to get our attention. A few years ago, we were in China and we visited many sacred sites. There were many deities there with tools of power like swords and lightning bolts and shields and lances and bow and arrow. And we were at a sacred mountain called Maoshan, where there was a giant statue of Lao Tzu, the most revered Taoist master of the past, that gazes over the whole town, and he holds a fan. Of all the tools of the deities, I wondered why a fan for Lao Tzu. So the teaching is, if we can weather the winds of change, we have gained wisdom, we have some mastery. So that is our great and rare opportunity right now during this unusual time, examining our inner life and our emotional habits. So as we have a chance to be with ourselves, sometimes with our own quiet voice, our days and weeks of just being with ourselves or with our family in different ways than we're used to. We're getting a lot of feedback either from ourselves or from others that we're with about our habit patterns. How have we been acting in life over the years? How have we been responding or reacting? We get lots of feedback from our partners, our kids, our aging parents, and anyone we've been spending time with now in this extended time. So we have had this unique chance, and some of us will continue to have a unique chance to really go deep and listen. So meditate, come back to peaceful moments. Journal if that calls to you to probe into the origins of these emotional habit patterns. Ask yourself, so when is the last time I felt this response or reaction to a situation? And bring it back further. Let other memories bubble up of many other times and relationships when you felt this way. Start to notice how much of a habit it has been, and come to a place of, so when did this habit energy of responding to emotions and situations, when did that start? It often starts in childhood when we may remember having spontaneous, authentic experiences, and then other influences, parental, sibling, teachers, religious influences, suddenly or more subtly over time squashed our authentic emotional responses, our spontaneous expression. And over time, this may have become a redirecting and a new habit response to what previously was spontaneous and authentic. And it has become conditioned and acculturated. And often we forget where it even started. This can, for some of us, become a cage that inhibits our own authentic way of being in life. And relationship to others, we may come to a place where we hit that wall and we don't know how to get past our own conditioned response. So in this unique moment in time in our lives, for many of us sheltering in place, it's an opportunity to take the time and deeply reflect on what has shaped this conditioned response in our true self, and give us an opportunity to listen to that still small voice that is our own true north, our guidance from within. Those of us studying with Jeffrey Ewan over time have been exposed to a Taoist practice called the Taoist meditation of sitting and forgetting. This is a liberating cultivation. This practice can be done at the end of each day as we first put aside this quiet time remembering the day, remembering it fully, remembering our emotional response to each thing that happened, sinking deeply into allowing all the events to wash over ourselves again, and being honest, deeply honest with ourselves. How did I really feel about that experience or that relationship in that moment? This honesty within our private self, especially as a daily practice, can start a path of liberating ourselves. Just noticing our real response can set us on a path of being more honest with ourselves without judgment, without self-judgment. As we allow this honesty to percolate in our consciousness, always moving away from self-judgment, we can begin to explore the previous experience of our responses. And we see how we've created these self-imposed cages that prevent us from responding and living more deeply true to our own nature. And we can begin to let go. As we've spent this time to really remember, then we do let it go as part of this meditation. We forget the day. This is the meditation of sitting and forgetting after we've remembered. We've brought the things we may not have had time to process to the light of awareness. This leaves our emotional body clean and clear to be present to our deep sleep and then to our next day, without the dregs of the previous day and the previous day ad infinitum hanging on and bogging us down and creating what we call emotional stagnation, which emotions live in the blood in Chinese medicine, so we really want to stay clear of blood stagnation. When we liberate that, we have freed ourselves from emotional stagnation. Blood stagnation, as Cissy has referred to in the past weeks, can lead to a lot of the side effects and the serious effects of COVID-19. So that's something that Cissy has been encouraging us to walk almost every day as much as we can, just gently enjoying ourselves, helping ourselves to relax, let go, be easy with ourselves, but walking, because that's also creating a movement where we are moving away from stagnation. In 5-element acupuncture, what we focus on, and this is from the classics from ancient times, is a deep spiritual listening, whatever that means for you as an individual. And then an emotional listening, and only then listening to the body, to what the body is saying. The Chinese classical medical literature from very ancient times all refer to attending to the spirit first and foremost, and that is the key to true healing, and not just the alleviation of symptoms. As we attend to our own spiritual level and listen to that gentle, subtle calling of our true north, our still small voice to guide our life, we can come into alignment with this authentic self and with our heavenly mandate. I love that terminology. We can slowly step away from the prescription written for us by others, by our parents, our family, our culture, our teachers, our religious influences, and drop into our deepest truths for ourselves. And we know when we're in our deep truth, we feel like we're in the groove. So we recognize that. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the 5 elements and the related emotions. Each of the 5 elements, there's so much written about it from very ancient times, at least 2,000 years ago. So each of the elements have various things related to them, including 2 organs, an emotion, a direction, a season, a color, and all of Chinese medicine and much of Chinese philosophy is all of one piece. So Feng Shui is related to these 5 elements. Chinese astrology is related. It's an orientation of living. And this orientation, one of the ways to remember this is the emperor is sitting up with his back to the north. And that's an important, each of the directions has great importance. So he's sitting with his back to a place of great resources. And on his left, the sun is rising. So that is a relationship of the wood element. So let me get to that part here. The wood is a rising energy, and it's also a source of creativity. When we find ourselves frustrated, we have activated our wood element. The emotion associated with the wood element can be anger. But there's other things that when anger is speaking, it's also calling on us to remember our creativity and many other things that we'll talk about right now. When we find ourselves frustrated, consider asking, is there a longing to be more creative? If so, listen to that medium of creativity that calls to you. It may be one of the arts or another expression, and start that creativity, even if it's in small steps. Sometimes anger can also feel like a righteous expression of injustice. The evolution of that deep listening to righting a wrong in the world can also turn into a creative expression over time. Often when we're young, we'll participate in protests because we feel that we're trying to right a wrong, an injustice. Over time, this may evolve and into the virtue associated with the wood energy, which is ultimately kindness. So that is often what's driving this longing and this righteous anger to right the wrong. Wood is also associated with the eyes and with having a vision for our life. As we've had this time away from our regular routine, we have been able to refocus our vision. And are we truly on track for our deepest longing of our true self? This is the time to take the opportunity and examine our path. Another ally I wanted to talk about on this journey of emotions is ceremony. This is a creative opportunity to be in relationship with the element that you've been working with for yourself or for a family member. Having a wood ceremony that you create with the green plant world, be it a tree you have a special relationship with, or a plant inside or outside that speaks to you. It may be a healing medicine plant or a plant that you find beautiful, but it speaks to you in some way. Notice its attributes of strength, of flexibility, of deep roots, of being able to adapt and thrive through the winds of change. How can this tree be an ally in our evolution of balance with the wood element? Having a sacred fire outside can also be a very powerful connection to our own fire element associated with our heart, our own sense of intimacy within ourselves, to find our own spontaneity, our own authenticity, and our joy. That's the emotion associated with the element of fire. As we're gazing at a bonfire and making an offering to burn off all that is not our true self, we can come into right relationship with others. And only then can we deeply be present to our true self in relation to our intimate partner, with friends, and ultimately becoming authentic with many others as well, as we practice this authentic way of being. And the fire ceremony can be an ally, asking for help of the element itself. If we are not out doing a bonfire, we can also use a candle and have the same wishes for ourselves. Or we can work for the earth element with a garden or natural landscape to connect with our own relationship with the earth. Finding ways to feel nurtured directly from Mother Earth herself. Many of us are practitioners and or parents, and nurturing and tending of our patients, our children, can sometimes be just the elemental expression that's just right for us if we have an earth constitution. And it can be right for others, but for others, it might be a taxation over time if it's not your natural way of being. If you're not an earthy person, but yet you're a practitioner or a parent, that can be a taxation and a challenge for you. So call on the earth. Your earth may be nurtured by your contact with growing and preparing foods and meals for yourselves and others with care and bringing family and community together. If wood is the time of birth and young years, and fire is the time moving into adulthood, because it's a progression, these elements progress one into the next. As we learn intimacy with one-on-one and maturing in the fire element into becoming a young family and or following a career path in the fire element, then the earth is the time of our harvest, post-maturity, with the time to focus on more extended family and community. It's a broadening out of more than just the initial impulse of growth with wood and the intimacy and developing right relationships with fire. And in earth, where it's a more extended community and extended family focus. And it's perhaps a time of sharing and giving back. Metal is the time of autumn. The energy is moving down as the tree is letting go of its leaves, and we let go of our younger life and move into becoming an elder. This letting go gives us the gift of grieving our losses and taking the time to grieve. The lungs are taking in the chi from the heavens. It also gives the gift of respect and our own sense of self-worth without arrogance. Metal and precious gems take a long time to be formed in the earth. They're not formed quickly. So with metal, it's a time of refinement, a crystallization of our energies, of purification, and it's also a time of respect and honoring. Elders in many traditions are honored because of their age and experience. Sometimes we have less physical energy, and there's more discrimination and refinement of what a person wants to focus on, knowing more of what is important to spend their time on at this age, and perhaps pulling away from the bustling activity of younger years. As we age and have the changes of physical death in our view, we have the opportunity to start to realize what is precious. That's part of the conversation of metal, like precious metals and precious gems, and how to cultivate that in our lives. We become more aware of the transient nature of physical life and what the dance of physical and spiritual life is in the metal conversation. This is a process of refinement. This is a beautiful opportunity to create a ceremony for that honoring of our own preciousness and that of others. and what we value in life. Find perhaps a crystal or a stone that speaks to you and build your ceremony around that. If the metal element provides the compost of the fallen leaves and the experience of our lives enriching those that come after us, then the water provides the seeds for the next life cycle of life. People find great solace and connection with the deep self with a journey to water. A solo walk by a river or a lake, finding your spot to sit and feel the gifts of water, and creating a ceremony that is either planned or spontaneous with nature at your spot. How do you feel here with the water and its power, its flowing nature? Here we can find our own solitude, our cleansing, and our own stillness. Water is often compared to be the element most associated with the Tao itself. It flows to the lowest place and continues to find its way. Water is associated with the attribute of storage, of storing resources. A tree accumulates minerals and water as the energy has moved deep in its roots over the winter, into the unseen and into the place of mystery. Spending time at the ocean can connect us with the feeling of power of the waves also. Meditation is a powerful way to connect to the stillness and depth of the water element. The virtue of water is wisdom. At this time of staying healthy with COVID virus, we know that the lungs are often the entryway of the virus, which includes the nose, the sinuses, and the throat. The virus may enter, but if we've attended to the physical flushing and the essential oils and other cleansing, it's harder for the virus to take hold and multiply. In a similar way, by attending to our emotional places that have felt stagnant, we also give the virus less of a foothold to grow and flourish. So that's true for the liver, where we talked about just moving all the emotions gives the liver more of a chance to flow, like as we're walking as well. And as we attend to each of these elements, the fire element that we talked about, finding our true self, our authentic and spontaneous, our natural self that we came in as a child. As we practice each of these ways of moving through our emotions, there's an opportunity to stay healthy and take this opportunity at this time. It's such a unique time in our history to take advantage and use these as tools. And remember that opportunity of the Taoist meditation of sitting and forgetting, which means first remembering the whole day and how we truly felt, and then letting it go. Thank you, Cissy.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to follow up a little bit. Lori just touched on the 5 elements, and she knows it from a much deeper perspective than I do. But just being with Jeffrey today, he talked about sleep and how it's twofold, and how fear can really impact our sleep and impact our dreams. And from a process of physicality, from in Chinese medicine, to have a really good sleep, it has to do with the blood returning back to the liver. We talk about the liver storing the blood. And, you know, when we're waking up in the morning, what we're going to do is mobilize the blood from the liver back to the entire body. And so the blood at night is basically being stored at the liver. The other aspect of sleep besides that has to do with Wei Qi. Now, when you hear say Wei Qi, basically from the easiest way to describe that from a Western perspective would be, it's our connection to the external world. It's our connection to our immune system. It's our connection to being able to fight off a virus that is in the air around us. Wei Qi starts by traveling into the chest, okay? From there it goes to the abdomen, gut, and this is where we talk about having rest to digest. And from the gut and the stomach, it returns to the area of the kidneys. And in Chinese medicine, you've probably heard me say many times, kidneys are the foundation of our health. Water is the basis of life, and that's defined by the self. And so the kidney organ is the root of health and longevity. Unfortunately, what hurts the kidneys in Chinese medicine is fear. And right now, many of us are living in a state of fear. We're watching the news. We're always hearing what's going on. We're being trapped by the television, by the news, by the newspapers, by the radio. And consequently, because of that, that keeps the fear from entering into our kidneys. And when we have a condition where fear is basically invading the essence of who we are, our sleep is disturbed. And when that happens, you're going to see that at the very most, you can sleep about 4 hours at a time. It may even be 2. But if qi doesn't enter the kidneys, and it's going to create many, many different types of fear. And that fear is going to manifest in our dreams. And the constitution that we have is going to tell us what kind of dreams we have. So in Chinese medicine, wood and fire are like the yang elements. That's the most active. So that might give you a clue to know that looking at me and my dear friend Junie and Lori, that I probably have a lot higher amount of fire element and wood element, okay? And those elements have different types of dreams. If you're like in a dream where you're all over every place, you're going here, you're going there, you're wondering, how did I get here? Where am I going? And, it's everywhere. You could be dreaming about being in almost 6 or 7 different places at the same time and not even having awareness in your dream of how you got there. That's a fire type of dream, okay? It's being all over the place, going from place to place. A wood dream, on the other thing, the wood oftentimes is referred to as the general. And so the wood has to do with, I've got to get these things done. So in your dreams, I'm doing this, now I've got to do this. And you've got this list of things that you're doing. And so the dreams that are disturbing your sleep, if you're a highly wood individual, might all be about what you have to get done. You wake up in the middle of the night and the first thing you're thinking about, I've got this and this and this. When it comes to the metal element, that's the lung. And that metal element and the lungs have to do with how do we deal with an external pathogenic factor. Well, COVID-19 is an external. It comes from the outside. It's a pathogen. And so it's an external pathogenic factor. Our internal pathogenic factors could be even the emotions that we have, the food that we eat sometimes. But external pathogenic factors, that's the metal element. And oftentimes those dreams are going to be about judgment. And if you are sitting there and you're thinking, I just didn't do that right. You're in the middle of a dream and you're sitting there and you can see yourself judging yourself, even in a dream world. You wake up thinking, I didn't do that right. That's having to do with judgment. It's almost, sometimes you might see yourself as bad, or you might see the world as bad. Seeing the world as bad is another judgment coming from the metal element. Now, when we get to the kidneys, the dreams that you're going to have there are usually going to be nightmares. It's going to be about ghosts. It's going to be about big animals. It's the things that basically could impact on our longevity. It scares us so much that we don't know where we're going to go and how long our life is going to be able to move past all these things that are creating fear. So, these are the things that we are looking at. And the problem is we oftentimes need a feedback system for ourselves. We need to be able to look at our self-talk. Many of my patients have probably heard me say, I want you to look at what you say inside your head, not what you're saying exteriorly, not the words you're speaking. But if we all look at the words we're saying out to ourselves inside our head, I wonder if we would say those to our children, to the people that we love so deeply. And these are the things that we have to start watching our feedback system. In Chinese medicine, our Shin, now the word for Shin in a Western culture would be more like our spirit. But our Shin, our spirit, is stored in the blood. And that really impacts our liver because, again, the liver stores the blood. The other organ that has a lot to do with blood is the spleen, and it manages the blood. And the reason I'm going to talk about the spleen right now is what I'm going to do is talk about how our blood and our Shin and spirit are impacted by what we think and how our spleen is able to concentrate our thoughts. Everybody's probably heard the saying that, if you can concentrate your thoughts and if you can look at the ability to sit and think about something, that all of us have self-healing capacities, okay? And, how do we pour from that? Because each of us is struggling and we're always looking to the outside for help with our health. And what would happen if we were able to sit and really concentrate on healing ourselves? Let's just, what if someone had breast cancer? And what they're going to do is go and seek radiation for 20 minutes, each day. I wonder how it would be if that person could concentrate for 30 minutes and concentrate on healing and releasing whatever's being held, okay? Could we focus our mind for a long enough period of time to really heal? And when we talk about meditation, or when we talk about contemplative prayer, what we're talking about is being able to concentrate on something long enough for it to be able to manifest, okay? And, I've heard of many different ways to try and help one learn to focus. One is like staring at a candle. What if I had a candle here right now and I was staring at that candle? The issue is not, can I keep my eyes on that candle, but can I keep my heart, mind focused on that candle, okay? Because it does no good if I've got my eyes there and my mind is running at 1,000 miles an hour. So part of all healing has to do with us being able to focus on our own. I let someone into the conference, so I lost my train of thought. So part of our ability to focus on healing has to do with us being able to sit in our own power. Now, the thing about the spleen and concentration is sitting is the movement that has to do with the spleen. And sitting still can be a part that has to do with nourishing the spleen. But everything has its flip side. Too much sitting can create turbidity, and it can lead to obsession. Okay, so if you've got so much focus on constantly everything about your health, then you've created turbidity at the spleen. And it's not that your spleen is weak, it's that there's turbidity, and that's from too much sitting. And those are you've heard me say, we have to get out to walk, okay? The walking helps the liver, but we also have to be able to sit still for a small amount of time. And that's an important thing for all of us to be able to sit. If you're a wood or fire type, it's very hard to concentrate for a long time, okay? It's like your mind's going like this and you're moving from one thing to another. What I want to do is suggest that all of us try and find a way to focus on something where we can continually focus on that one thing. And for me, I've always found it works best with my breath. I mean, if I was doing a type of meditation like the microcosmic orbit, that's really easy for me to do, okay? Because I'm paying attention to all of this orbit and moving and shifting the chi from one area to another. That's an easy meditation for me. For me to sit and not focus on anything except my breath in and out is much harder. It doesn't keep my mind entertained as much. I've got my fire energy is just running wild. But I would tell you that's the balance for me, is to to sit and not be doing an act of meditation, but to close my thoughts down to just one focus area. And so I'm going to suggest that all of us look at what's the right meditation and what's the right way to focus. And maybe if you're all fire, you may have to do something like the microcosmic orbit, a meditation like that. Maybe if you are wood, your meditation is going to have to be taken step by step. And with each step you have, concentrate on kidney 1, connecting with the earth. I spent some time at Thich Nhat Hanh's retreat center in France one time. And, walking meditation is a very big part of, being on retreat there. And it was really wonderful for me because that helped my wood element also. So I just want all of us to look at what might be best for us. And again, look at your dreams and look if we really want to move away from fear, because fear constricts, and it constricts our joy of life, and it constricts our ability to move through life. It is what basically shuts down the kidneys. I wanted to say one more thing before we start asking questions. I've had a lot of people asking me, well, how are you treating COVID? And the thing I want to tell you is I'm not treating COVID. COVID's a pathogen. Why would I treat COVID? I treat people who have imbalances. And maybe there was a Wei Qi imbalance that allowed this to take a hold in your body, okay? But, for me, it's not about looking at what the pathogen is. It's about looking how it's manifesting in each person. And that's the difference between Chinese medicine and Western medicine. We are not looking at the disease as much as we're looking at the person. And it's because of that, I think, that Chinese medicine has been helpful. People are asking, are you treating COVID? Well, here in Asheville, You know, up until just recently, you couldn't get a test. I had patients that I treated, and I told them to, you know, that I suggested that they go and, you know, get tested for COVID, and they went and they were told, if you aren't sick enough to be in the hospital, we're not going to test you. But I'm sure that many, many of us are walking around that are asymptomatic or had such minor things that never occurred to us. And, you know, what I want to really suggest now is that we really pay attention and maybe get out of the fear place, but also have the wisdom to know what to do to take care of ourselves. If we're taking care of ourselves and we're taking care of our families, then I think, and our friends, and family, of course, being those people we hold in our heart, you know, those people that share the spirit that each of us emanates, those are family. And if we're taking care of those people and ourselves, that's how to move through something like this epidemic. I think that's more important than sometimes just staying in a house totally by yourself. It might be best have social distancing, wear a mask, but let's make sure that we're taking care of everybody's heart and our own hearts. So I think we're at that part that if anyone has questions for either Lori or me, Lori's coming back on. And again, she is the, I think she's coming back on. I can't see it. But if you have questions now, we'd love to answer them. And if not, we enjoyed tonight and hope you got something out of it. Is Lori here?
I'm here, Cissy. I don't know how to turn the, oh wait, let me see if I can start the video. Hold on.
I don't know how to do it, Lori.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah, there. So, Beanie Beanie, are you there, sweetheart?
Yes, I am. I was just scrolling through to see if there were any questions. It looked like there was one question about who was the Nobel Prize winner in either physiology or medicine in 2015. It was divided. One half went to William Campbell and Satoshi Omura for therapy for roundworm parasites, and the other half went to Tu Youyou for her discoveries concerning a novel therapy against malaria. So I think that that might have been the one that there was a question about. It seems also like Evelyn has a list of, it sounds like perhaps a humorous list that maybe she can read for us.
Evelyn is, I think her list is about eating a mask.
Well,
Evelyn, would you sit with us, please, my friend?
no, it's 9 things I like about wearing a mask.
Oh, good. I was wondering about what you were eating your mask for.
Probably
You're
my
typing.
computer writing something that for me that I didn't spell correctly.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to be visible?
Well, yeah, you said you'd read it.
I'm gonna read it. Okay. I'm just here. Okay. Okay. Do you want me to be visible? Because I'm not seeing myself, but it doesn't matter.
You're visible in my heart. Go for it, girlfriend.
Okay. So these are 9 things I like about wearing a mask. Number 1, it helps me not use my mouth to say needless, dumb stuff so much. I'm not wearing one right now. Number 2, makes me use my ears and listen more, so it helps me be quieter and more receptive. That's number 3. Number 4, it makes me use my eyes more. Number 5, reminds me to make eye contact and focus on someone's soul and not their face. Number 6, makes me see that smiling is something that eyes do. Number 7, It hides the wrinkles around my mouth. Number 8, I can talk to myself and no one knows. Number 9, if I also wear dark sunglasses and tie my hair back, no one knows who I am. So I can be whoever I want, and I can even be someone new every day.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Evelyn. And the beauty is if we wake up someone new every day, then at that point we are rebirthing every day and adding to our longevity. So someone asked about nourishing the spleen, and they understood me to say meditate and focus. Well, the spleen is aligned with the earth element, and the earth element has to do with nourishing from the earth. And so the foods that are particularly good for the earth element are those things that are root vegetables or even the winter squashes. So anything that comes up out of the earth, you know, in other words, not so much the greens and lettuce that go on the top, but our carrots, our parsnips, you know, winter squashes, those things that we bake and eat. So those are foods that nourish the spleen. But nourishing the spleen with our life has to do with having awareness, okay? And having the ability to be still. And one of the passwords at the college is be still and feel the chi. So now you all know the password to the internet if you're there. But if we think about it, being still and feeling the chi, and whenever I say that, for me, I immediately feel it first in my heart. But then, you know, you always want to just send that chi to the stomach and to the kidneys, because of the kidneys connection. But the spleen and lung are both the root of postnatal chi. It has to do with our ability to take in life from the air we're breathing and the food we're eating. And if we look at our life being generated by the food we're eating, also by the thoughts we're thinking. So let's look at what we are eating physically, but sometimes more importantly, we need to look at what we're eating, the self-talk. That's what I want us to start and look and see the things that we say inside our heads to ourselves. Those might be the most important things to focus on for self-nourishment. Can I share thoughts about long-term impact of wearing a mask with compromised lungs like asthma? That smile was because my daughter keeps telling me, put your hand down. I guess I keep doing this, but let me put my hands down. You know, it would, you know, if I think about the long-term effects of asthma, there's a couple of things that happen with asthma. First, sometimes our lungs are really compromised. But what I've seen a lot in our culture, and I have to talk about this because when I graduated from acupuncture college back in, I started college in 82, and then in 85, I moved here and opened the Chinese acupuncture clinic. What we heard about at that point were there was just really two types of asthma. You know, there was lung deficiency, and then when there was also spleen kidney deficiency that impacted asthma. And all of a sudden I'm seeing patients and I'm seeing, well, wait, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit. And then I started looking at us as a culture. And looking at us from a culture, I talked earlier about the diaphragm and how the diaphragm relates to the liver. And if the diaphragm is tight, then it's not easy for our lungs to descend its chi to the kidneys. And the lungs have to descend to the kidneys in Chinese medicine. We've all been in that situation where we try to take a deep breath and we can see we can't get one, and that's because the diaphragm's tight. So, there's, going back to your question now of wearing a mask, I wonder if the surgical mask, do I have one right here? I do not see one. The surgical mask have gaps where there is air coming into them. And I think that sometimes people may feel that they're not getting oxygen. And so what I would recommend is come over to our office, ask somebody if you can borrow a pulse oximeter for 5 minutes and watch and see how it impacts on your oxygen, okay? Because sometimes we're feeling like we can't breathe, but if we put on a pulse oximeter, we'll see that we have 95% oxygen. So I'm going to suggest that we really need to check that out and see if it's anxiety of our face being covered, or is it really impacting our oxygen, okay? Let's see.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
It's 8:01. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Lori and I hope that this shared and gave you a little bit of insight into yourself. And we just want to remind you that, the most important thing we can all do right now is to support ourselves so we're able to support others. Thank you. Good night.